This is the eLearning Podcast, episode 19.
The purpose of online course is not to educate people. So if all you're going to be doing is putting information that exists on Google behind a paywall, that's probably not a key to success or not a road to success. What I say is your course has to create results. So my magic formula is about 20% information and 80% action.
Welcome to the eLearning Podcast from lmspulse.com. My name's Stephen Laddick, and I'm the director at LMS Pulse. If you've ever considered taking the plunge and launching your own online course, this is the conversation you've been waiting for. My guest for today's episode is Jane Sagalovich. After a decade in corporate finance, business development, and strategy, Jane herself decided to launch Scale Your Genius, a Denver-based startup that helps experts in the launch of impactful and profitable online programs. No matter your field or background, if you have something to teach to the world, you might want to call Jane, or at least check out Scale Your Genius on social media. In this thought-provoking conversation, Jane and I talk about Scale Your Genius, Jane's virtual consultancy with a mission of rid the world of crappy online courses. We also talk about why long before the pandemic, Jane had found key educational reasons why online meetings were superior to face-to-face interaction. In one word, evidence. We also talk about the e-learning opportunity for experts, that is, professionals with track records or knowledge and wisdom, thanks to the explosion of technologies and support services. And finally, we talk about Jane's process of collaboration with experts to create online courses, which includes a reality check on what people want, what content they respond better to, and of course, how much they are willing to pay. Spoiler alert, you might be undercutting yourself. But before we get started, a quick word from our sponsors.
The eLearning Podcast is sponsored by the eLearning Success Summit. Learn from more than 40 experts how to teach, work, and learn online without being overwhelmed. Get your free ticket to the summit at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And lmspulse.com, your best source for news, information, and resources for e-learning professionals for more than 10 years. Get our free roundup of the week's top news at lmspulse.com.
Hi, Jane. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Jane, where do we find you sitting today?
I am sitting in snowy and cold Denver, Colorado, a little off season for early September.
You know, it will probably be awesome by the time we actually air this. It will probably be the middle of winter, and that will make a lot of sense. But yeah, for posterity, we're recording this the early September 8th, actually. I've been asking this to all of our guests just because it's the super relevant topic. How's your COVID?
How's my what?
How's your COVID going?
How's my COVID going?
Yeah,
my COVID is going great.
I mean, are you, you're in this world where you're working with people to develop online courses and whatnot. Have you started, actually physically seeing clients again or anything like that? Or is everybody still in lockdown in Denver or what?
That's a great question. I actually never did see clients in person, or I did one time. And what happens is because all of my clients being online, and we record all of our coaching sessions and strategy sessions on Zoom, and they get a recording of it. And it's always worked. And I had one client who's like, we're both in Denver. I really want to see you in person. So I'm like, okay, I had a beautiful office space downtown at the time. And I said, come see me. So we go through the session. She takes notes. I take notes. Of course, we don't write down everything. And afterwards, she was asking me so many questions. And I'm like, this is exactly why I do it all online. So that was my one time. So I will not see people in person unless they're social visits.
That's awesome. I love that. The antithesis of the need to be social. Jane, you run a company called, or you run a process called Scale Your Genius. And it's at scalegenius.com. I don't want to steal your thunder. Tell us what it is that Scale Your Genius is all about, because it's a little different than what our audience normally hears about.
Yeah. So basically we have a process. So Scale Your Genius is the company name. The Thriving Online Program Blueprint is the system that we have created to enable highly skilled experts to package their expertise into an online course that they can monetize their expertise in a new way, reach a broader audience, make a bigger difference, really break out of whatever box they may be operating in today.
Super cool. So who's your typical client? Who, like, is it somebody who's written a book? Is it, somebody who thinks they want to be a blogger or has maybe a little successful blog? Or who do you usually work with?
Good question. So I use the term highly skilled expert. And what we really mean by that is somebody who's been in their craft for many years, who may have degrees in the area, a lot of experience, and they have something to teach, train, or consult people in. So they may absolutely have written a book. They may be a consultant, they may be a coach, they may be a professor. I work with a lot of mental health professionals, dietitians, nutritionists, people who help other people in some way and are really, really good at it.
Okay. So do people usually come and find you? They're like, they're knocking on the door, like, oh, I got it. I have to create this course. Or like, because I can imagine people showing up and they're kind of like, I think maybe I could do this, or maybe I can't do this, or, my friends have told me, like, God, why don't you go create is like, what's like the typical first step that you go through with somebody when they show up at your door?
Yeah, so so if we talk about the whole awareness journey, so I'm going to take a little detour from your question. So the
Sure.
awareness journey with online courses really, first begins with a struggle. It begins with these people are somehow monetizing their expertise that is not super efficient. So what they see is they're not making as much money as they should, quote unquote should, given their level of expertise, experience, education, and they're really limited with how many people they can reach. So it comes into their awareness that what they're doing is not what they can be doing. And I always say the first thing is they kind of get this inkling of there's a better way, but they don't totally know what it is. They've heard of various options, online courses being one of them. If you go to my website, it says I'm on a mission to rid the world of crappy online courses. And this is a big hurdle people get to is, they've heard of courses. They might have taken some that have really been crappy to, for lack of a better word. And so they're like, well, I want to reach more people, but I don't want to put one of those things out there because my reputation is too important. So then that's kind of the next level is like, well, I want to do it, but I don't know how to do it right. So then they start, the research, the Googling, the YouTube videos, because there is so much information out there. And at the end of that process is, or somewhere in the middle of that process is usually they come to me. They're like, okay, there's a lot of information. I don't know what's right or wrong. I want to make sure the course I create is amazing. And I support people in a one-on-one capacity. So I have digital modules, but we also talk one-on-one. So really they said, okay, I've Googled all I can Google. I actually need help. Or the people who said, I don't want to waste my time Googling and just let somebody tell me right away.
I thought you were going to say at the end of that journey where they go out and they Google the things that I've heard about this, they get overwhelmed. They're like, well, I don't have a voice here. Like, there's nothing real that how can I contribute? Because you go to Google and you type in any subject, then you get 10 million hits back, right? And there's, 50, there's already 50 people who know about, black poodles that are from, some small country in Kazakhstan, right? Like it gets that deep. So what do you say to people who are like, I really don't have a voice here?
Yeah, a few things. I say an online course is the purpose of online course is not to educate people. So if all you're going to be doing is putting information that exists on Google behind a paywall, that's probably not a key to success or not a road to success. What I say is your course has to create results. So my magic formula is about 20% information and 80% action. So your course should enable people to take action, step-by-step action as they take your course, and the information only supports it. And so yes, that 20% piece is available on Google, but there's the 80% that's the process that you'll be creating. That's where the magic happens, and that's what drives, these premium course prices of $2,500 or more.
And I've seen them out there, right? Like there's the big masterclass one that's being promoted everywhere, I think right now. There's a few more that are going on like that. What's it take to create something of, let's say, masterclass quality? I mean, give me an idea of what I'm investing as an individual. Is it hundreds of dollars, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars to get to sort of that kind of quality where I'm putting something out there where I can just really go out and just be like, yes, I love this, and I can go out and sell it?
Absolutely. So, without the help of an expert like me, it is very low cost. So an online course platform can cost you about $100 a month for, really all you're going to need. Video production, really, I tell people not to spend a lot of money on video production unless that's an important part of their curriculum. If they're doing a course on video production, like it better be good, obviously. If they're doing a course where that's not as important, I say, Phil, if people are watching this on video, for the people that are, this is good enough. It doesn't need to be professionally done unless that is important to your topic and or your audience. So, know your audience.
Right.
So that part alone is fairly inexpensive. Your next level of support is a digital course. So something like Amy Porterfield is a big name in this space who has a course on how to create courses. And that's under $1,000. I'm not sure what her latest pricing is, but it's several $100s. And then if you hire an expert like me, who's actually supporting you one-on-one, that's several $1,000s and up. So really depends on the level of support you want to get along the way. And, I always say, how much is your time worth? Like people think that doing it on their own is quote unquote free, but by the time you're a couple of 100 hours in, that ain't so free.
Yeah. So now you just kind of stole the thunder of my next question. Let's just say, I've been teaching whatever I'm teaching, or I'm an expert in whatever I've been doing. Translating that into something that's actionable and, kind of putting through the process that you just talked about. That's why people hire you, right? Because they don't know how to do that. What's the time frame for somebody to normally do that, to go from, I want to do this, I'm committed, to I've got a product that I can put out there and I feel reasonably good about?
Yeah. So my program is 90 days and I'm flexible with that. So I have some clients who go through it 90 days, launch clients, bam, like they're ready to go, about 2 to 3 hours per week over that 90-day period. And, there's reality, there's life. These days there's homeschooling, there's, we wear a lot of hats these days. So 90 days is not the deadline. It is available for people who are able to do that quickly. And my personal unlimited support goes until they get their first paying client. So I actually support them no matter how long it takes them.
Wow, that's interesting. So 2 to 3 hours a week with you, what kind of work are they putting in on the back end after that? Is it, is this, you're giving them like 5 hours of work of assignment a week, or like what's
Good question. Yeah. So that's 2 to 3 hours their work. That is not with me.
Cool.
So they have digital modules that they go through plus assignments. And so that's their 2 to 3 hours, sometimes more, it depends. I'd say the marketing and the course creation, it's a little more variable depending what they already have created. A lot of people have a lot of the content created. So a lot of it is just organizing into a way that makes sense. And then my support is supplemental to that. So as they go through the modules, they'll have questions come up. That's where I come in, or they'll have me review course material, sales page, emails, things like that. So mine is kind of supplemental, but also in that 2 to 3 hour time frame.
Cool. What's the most typical fail? Like, you've worked with lots and lots of people. They come and they consult you for advice and they feel like they're experts. At some point, I'm going to say probably a lot of them just either fail to create their course or get really stuck or feel like what are the 2 or 3 things that you typically see that you coach them through?
Excellent question. So we start with so much mindset and high performance work because of exactly what you're talking about. And if you think about the time you're so excited to create something new, right? That excitement level is super, super high. You're like, yes, I just paid for support, or I committed to a launch date, or whatever it is. You're like riding on top of the world. And then reality hits. That 2 to 3 hours is no longer as easy to fit into your schedule. Family things come up, work things come up, just life comes up. And it seems, there's no stop sign all of a sudden that they hit. I see the slowly kind of fading away. They're going to do 2 hours. Now they're going to do 1 hour. Now they're like, well, I'm going to skip this week. And when that excitement fades away and the reality of it does take work, I don't want to say it's a ton of work, but it's an investment of time and effort that absolutely pays on the other side. But, investment always by definition takes a sacrifice on the front end. Just that's what investment is, whether it's money, time, or energy. And so that excitement fades away and it's hard to, keep on trucking. It's what the, authors call, was it the messy middle? I think it's in the book writing world. I heard it from somebody. Yeah. It's like the beginning and the ending is cool, but in the middle is where things just get a little fuzzy. And, the launch date is still a month out. It's taking work. That excitement has faded away. And so it's just the reality of the process. And so a lot of my work is I don't. I don't play babysitter. It's not one of those. Like if I'm not going to call them every day saying, "Are you doing your work?" Because that's just not my people too. They're not going to be the ones who are going to be successful on the other side anyway. But they do need a little encouragement, and it's more of kind of reassurance and encouragement along the way. And so I think it's just a natural process with any big new project that does take a certain amount of time. You just hit a spot where it's like, this is not exciting anymore, and the light at the end of the tunnel isn't so clear yet. So it's recommitting to the vision is a big part of the process at that point.
What, I guess is there something that you share with your clients or even potential clients where, like, what's the big win at the end? Like, what's the prize at the end of the tunnel that maybe is either a motivator, or when that excitement does start to fade, that you can hold up and say, "Hey, remember we talked about this?" Hey, like, what are there a couple of those things that you could share?
Yeah, so the very first thing we do is create their vision, is create life and business vision. And so whatever it is for themselves, they get to create their life on the other side of this course. So we do really fun exercises like, what's your team saying about you? What are your clients saying about you? What is the media writing about you? So really getting into the reality of life on the other side of the course. And it's different for everybody. Some people want the fame and recognition. I have a lot of clients who are using the course as really a way to get their name out there. So those might be the ones who are writing a book or have written a book, because that's another strategy for a similar goal. Some people just want more time with their family. They're like, you know what? I'm done working 60 hours a week. I want to work 20 or 30, and I still want to earn an income that can support my family and set us up for retirement, tuition, college tuition, whatever it is. Others just want to make more money, works the same amount of hours, make more money. So there's different levels of motivation. And that's why it's so important for them to get clear with their own, what it is they want, so that that's what keeps them motivated. But it's usually, money, impact, fame, time.
Fame. Oh,
Yeah. I'm like, just fame. No big deal.
just whatever.
Yeah, just whatever.
5 seconds of fame.
Yeah.
I can already kind of feel, like the audience that we have that comes here, there, we're in, I guess COVID in itself has really made us all leapfrog a little bit with our tech savviness and whatnot. But just knowing the feedback that we've gotten from a lot of different places, people are still like, how do I get over that hurdle? And I've already heard you say, okay, we've got digital modules, and we're going to be online and these kinds of things. What if I'm not tech savvy? Is this a huge hurdle for me? Is this something that I need to be concerned about, or is that something you walk people through, or it's just everything's done for you out there now?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because I always say, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm not tech savvy at all. And the platforms these days are so simple to use. Everything's kind of drag and drop. If you can copy and paste a document from, Word doc into something else, you can create an online course. One of my course platform partners, they actually have a concierge service. So they do it for you, and their price is not, it's obviously more expensive than them not doing it, but it's not prohibitive. And so there are also done for you options out there that can support you in that. And then I always say, don't expect tech to be perfect. I think by now, with the COVID world, everyone has experienced the imperfection of technology. And that's just, take that perfectionist hat off when you're working with technology and just expect things to go wrong. And that's just what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure. Gosh, preach that,
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that kind of comes to mind when we talk about somebody taking their expertise, building a course out there, or going through that process, not only the sort of the excitement fading, but also, I'm going to have to sell this, right? I'm going to have to build that muscle and whatnot. And sales is an ugly word in almost every circle that I've ever been in. What do you talk to your clients about that? What's the requirement for that? That after you build this, you're actually going to have to go out there and put it on the street, or is that not a thing?
Oh, absolutely. So if they work with me, we start the process on week 2, because we can make the best guess about what the demand is, but the market is what's going to tell us. And there's a misconception between the demand for the course itself versus the demand as our messaging creates it, if that difference makes sense. So like if
No,
you're an
take me
expert,
through that. Break that down. Yeah, break that down, please.
Yeah. So let's say your course is on, so I have a client whose course is in how to get a job in cybersecurity.
Okay.
And so we know there are people who want to get jobs in cybersecurity. We know there are books written on the topic. We know there are people who struggle with that process. So we know the demand for the topic itself exists. Now, how do we create that demand through the messaging for the course? How do we talk to those people who need this course and inspire them to enroll in the course?
Mm.
So we know they need it, but we don't yet know how to talk to them in the way that inspires them.
Okay.
So in week 2, we start talking to those people and we start gathering data on the language that they use, on how they talk about their problems, on how they talk about their goals and aspirations and what's keeping them in the way, so that when the course creator is ready to create their marketing messaging, they're creating it in a way that is resonating with their dream clients.
Awesome. What's the question I want to ask? I don't know how to ask it. How do I prevent myself from kind of coming across as like a, pushy salesperson, like, hey, you need my course. Oh gosh, this is going to change your life. All right, this is the one thing that you never did when looking for that cybersecurity job. Is that part of it as well, or?
It absolutely is. So one of our topics is enrollment, and it's that. So the premium online courses, the ones that sell for above $1,000, $2,000, I always encourage people to enroll clients through a conversation to make sure that it is the perfect fit. And the goal of that conversation is not to enroll somebody. It is simply to help the person on the other side of the phone or Zoom or whatever, however you're talking, to make the best decision for themselves. So I think when we come at that conversation through that lens, there is no pushing. It's a conversation. It's, are we a fit for each other? And I always, I talk people out of working with me. A lot of people who get on these calls with me, I'm like, you know what? You're just not a fit for my process. You might be a fit for somebody else's. And if I see, if I know they're a fit for a specific person, I'll refer them another way. But for me, it's not to get every client into my course. It's to see who are the people who can get the most value. And it's the same process I teach to my clients. Now, one thing I offer and encourage my clients to offer is a full money back guarantee. So my clients can get their money back at any point of their process, no matter how much time I spent with them. And that's what that does, is make sure that I am super careful on the front end of who I take in, because I don't want the person who, in 2 months is going to want their money back.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's kind of part of the magic too.
I gotta say, a full money back guarantee when I'm like 89 days in, that's bold. That is serious. That's but it's also somebody who, you believe in your process. You know it works, and it's worked for lots of people. Which now I want to know, where did you come from? I mean, are you a course creator? Is this, you're an expert and obviously clearly on how to create courses, but how did you get into this? Where did this passion come from?
Yeah. So I'm an expert in business strategy and process creation, and creating an online course is simply a process. And this was, I spent 18 years in corporate. I was in corporate strategy and finance and investments, did a little bit with eLearning. So, got my toes wet into that space a while ago. And it was one of those, I was comfortable and I loved it and it was cool. And one of my strong driving values is impact. And I don't know if a lot of the people listening have worked in the corporate world. Impact is not one of the things you necessarily get. You get comfort, you get, the paycheck every other week, you get security, you get a lot of things, but not necessarily seeing the results of your work on other people. Of course, there are industries where that's different, but none of the ones I was in, that was the case. And so I knew I wanted to work with small business owners. And so I and an ex-business partner did small business consulting for 4 years, started working on an online program, and I was really seeing the gaps in the market for my perception of the process. I saw what I thought was missing in what was being taught out there, and really saw the huge demand and the blocks that people were having that I knew I could so easily create a process for them. So Usually it's funny. I don't usually recommend people do beta courses or testings out there if it's something that they've been doing, but because it was a new process for me at the time, I took 10 clients through just for free through a beta process, just to make sure that, I'm not crazy, that the process I created actually works. It's not just me. And it proved to work. So then I was ready to launch it as a paid product. And, like everything we create, it's had iterations, and I'm in my third year of doing just online courses. And so it's continually improving and iterating and, following, I always say I combine the best practices, the proven best practices with whatever's happening in the market at the time.
Super cool, man. That's a great story. I love as a fellow entrepreneur, I always love a great success story like that. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But, and it leads me to where my next question is, many of the people who are listening to us right now, they're professors, or they're an L&D instructor, coordinator, or head of HR in a corporation. And maybe one of the questions they're asking themselves is, look, I get paid by my company to be an expert, or I get paid by my university to be an expert. Like, what are the limitations for people to go out and create these online courses for themselves? Do they need to get permission? What do they need to worry about in that regard in order to put themselves out there individually?
That's a good question. I'd say that's very probably case by case. Are there non-competes? I don't think I have a blanket answer. Usually I see a lot of people who keep their quote unquote day job, their corporate jobs, their education jobs, and create a course too. So I think a lot of agreements do allow for side income agreements. And so I think it just really depends on their particular situation. I would say don't compete head to head with your employer. Don't go out and teach for the exact same thing that they're making money on. Is probably a good starting point, but really case specific. So usually, so it's like, do you have a side expertise, a side interest, or a flavor of what you're doing at your current company that can then be, the side monetization project?
A couple more questions. How does this fit into like a place like Coursera or, a Udemy or something where it's, literally like you're talking, so far we've kind of been talking about, I think you said like a premium course, it's a couple $100 or in that upper scale. Talk me through, like, are we not worrying about those, like those MOOCs anymore? Those sort of places, they're not a thing in your universe, or how does that work?
They're not a thing in my universe, because the only people that I have seen have good success with those low priced courses are ones who have a huge audience, which is not anybody who that's not my people. Okay. So they have a huge audience. They can put out a $20 course and enough people will buy for them to make money. My people come there like, we don't even have an email list, or they have a little bit. And so they're starting marketing from scratch. And so at that point, the higher, I'm sure we have economic professors on here. It's, the supply demand curve. It's like the more, you need fewer clients for a higher price. So marketing looks different and also is easier. So those Udemy, there's no control over the course. They're low price. You're expecting Udemy to do the marketing. It's a model. It's not a bad model. It's just not the one I teach. And it's not the one I recommend for people who want to create high impact courses.
Super cool. If I'm creating a high impact course with you, do you have any pieces of your process, or is there any expectation? Sorry. Sort of at the end of it, like I could see like a ton of follow-on kind of stuff, right? Say, hey, somebody come in and, okay, look, you're going to learn how to apply for that cybersecurity job, but then do you teach a process of sort of upselling, cross-selling, come into my consulting practice, blah, that kind of stuff? Is that all part of what you do, or is that where you're handing off to somebody else?
So the core Thriving Online Program Blueprint stops at the launch of this course, because they just put in so much work. They need to spend some time with this course, like we're talking about the person who's going to exit your course and need the next thing. Yes, absolutely. And that's something I can support them with. And in the planning portion, in the vision portion, we do talk somewhat vaguely around what does your online course business look like as a whole. But what they're creating is just that first online course, because just the ideas we even have in the beginning could change as we start delivering that first course. And so I don't like to make things too solid at that point, because like, it's good to have the vision, good to have the idea, and leave room for it to evolve. And it's once you've created your first course, it's so easy to say, okay, so now I see my client got the cybersecurity job. Now their need is, I don't know that space well enough to even make up what that need could be. Yeah. So whatever that need is, they're like, oh, cool, I can now create a course to support them with that, or a membership community, or a group program, or a mastermind, or any of those other online business modalities that can then support those people in the next iteration. And that's something I can help them in a custom format.
Sure. What about the need for certification? Do any of your clients ultimately end up offering sort of like that, hey, this is, hey, here's a credential that you get, or here's a, some sort of legitimacy, or is it everybody that you work with, it's just sort of knowledge and action taking, and that's really the outcome that they go for?
It's the latter. And all of the learning management system providers we use have the functionality for the certification. So if that is something that is important to them and is applicable to them, they can do it.
Okay, very cool. Right on. Last question I always ask everybody in these interviews is, what do you see sort of maybe 6 months from now, or even a year from now? Is your business still just, is it booming? Are online courses just becoming, more and more and more the norm? Are there any pivots coming that you see, or, any new technology that's going to be a disruptor? Or is it, sort of steady as she goes and it's just bigger and better?
Yeah. So, and if you hear my cat, that's exactly what you're hearing. He's getting close to dinner time and he's like, Mom, enough. Enough talking.
That's awesome. That's the first time I've had a cat visit the show. Sweet.
Oh, I'm sure it's all the kids these days. This is Zeus. So, I really see it just growing and becoming more and more just common. I think, with COVID, we're all used to Zoom. We're getting so much more used to technology. I'm seeing a lot of the older demographic take and create courses because of that technology barrier that's been lowered. And so I think it's just such an amazing way for, I don't want to call it the retirement job, but a way to make income as you're nearing retirement. So I have a lot of clients who are in their kind of mid-50s who are not quite retiring yet, but want to create something that will take them through retirement. So I see that being a big part of the shift too. It's no longer just the millennials. It's no longer just,
yeah. If I can be so bold, just because I do have a lot of gray hair here, I've always been fascinated at the, hey, I'm an expert and I'm 23, right? Now they really could be an expert at something, especially in the technology world. That's a thing. But so often there's just so much out there where are the 50-year-olds, where are the 60-year-olds who actually have been doing this for 25 years or 30 years, who could probably fix any problem that I have just, oh, well, heck, I've done that 14, and so it's really great to hear you say that more and more of those people are coming on board, because I feel like that is really that's the juice, that's the marrow of that we're missing out there in the sort of the online education world.
I'm so glad you pointed that out, and I agree 100%. And, when I say highly skilled expert, again, nothing wrong with a 22-year-old expert, but
no, not at all.
I want the 55-year-old, and so, and I think that's especially where a process like mine, where I do get to handhold them a little bit, is really helpful for them, because they're not as likely to just go want to Google how to create this. They do want the support. They have built up a strong reputation for themselves over those years that they're not ready to risk by putting out a crappy online course. So those are definitely the people that are really, really great for my work, because it is so supportive for them.
Jane, this has been a fantastic conversation. What I love about it is just, this is a place where I think a lot of people, just like you said, they know they're experts, especially a lot of people who are listening to the show right now. And it's just getting from that place where it's in my head and I do it every day, to scaling that and making it efficient. So thank you for taking the time for being on the show today. I hope that we can talk to you again sometime in the future.
Oh, absolutely. This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for tuning into today's episode of the eLearning Podcast. If you like what you've learned today in this episode, I encourage you to either follow us or subscribe to us on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube. And please do share this episode with one or two of your colleagues or friends. Also, I just want to remind you that you can level up your online learning game with all of the information that's available at the eLearning Success Summit. You can get your free ticket at elearningsuccesssummit.com. And finally, you can also stay up to date on everything that's important, all the news and the resources for e-learning professionals at lmspulse.com. Get our free newsletter by just going to lmspulse.com today. Thanks again.